It's I am live. I may not have co-hosts yet. They're on their way. But here's what I do have. I have the draft. It's on, it's live. I have the MLB trade wire up in the second window. I need to see who else the Yankees are going to get and make shave their beards. How is that still a thing? Honestly, how are the Yankees still allowed to get away with like cop mustache rules in 2021 and make anybody who just is unfortunate enough to have to play there look like a cop? All of them. They just got Joey Gallo. I mean, he's been known for his beard for, so it was 27. So he's been in the league, 5 years. Just he's got to shave that on an airplane tonight. So that's fun. I remember when they got Kutch a few years ago. He did before and after selfies from the airplane bathroom from when he shaved. Because he just had to, you got to get rid of all that facial hair if you're going to play for the evil empire. So Nate's not here to defend his Yankees, so I can get away with that. But yeah, no, it's a dumb rule. That should definitely not be a thing in 2021. Another thing that shouldn't be a thing in 2021 is fake human rights claims about Cuba. One of the best things about claiming human rights for Cuba is, one, if you don't mention the blockade in the first, 4 sentences on your human rights diatribe, you don't care about human rights. Second, if you don't mention Guantanamo Bay, a literal illegal torture prison that we run in an illegally occupied city in Cuba, where we shove feeding tubes into people to keep them alive. They haven't been there. They haven't been tried. They haven't been charged. I think we have one person still detained in Guantanamo that's been there going on 20 years. So again, if human rights are your claim, but you don't mention the illegal torture prison or you don't mention the blockade, let's be honest, like the jig is up. Like you don't care about human rights. Like that's just the way that goes. Jeffrey Neal, what's up, guys? Just watching, the NBA draft, waiting on the others. Mike is at a political event that has gone a little bit long, and Nate's trying to get back home so he can hop on. Got a little NBA draft stuff. As a Pistons fan like me, I'm a little happy with the number 1 pick. I'm cool with that. I'm cool with the 6'8" point guard. Take that. Get you a nice advantage. Yeah. So and like I said, watching the MLB trade wire. Trade deadline is tomorrow. There's lots of crazy things happening. Good teams are going to get better, and the Cubs are going to get stripped of all their talent, which I like that. Oh man, conference realignment. We are definitely going to talk about conference realignment. Absolutely. I was talking to Nate on the phone earlier, and all of your, like, if you want to see like a real good representation of class struggle play out in organizations, just look at how much power is spread around college football, right? But only with that top class, that top echelon of schools, the elites. We even call them elite schools. Like, I mean, nothing's being hidden here. These mid-majors, as realignment happens, these mid-major schools are just going to get absolutely just passed over. They have no power. I mean, even a conference, like the Pac-12 doesn't hold power compared to, some of the others. And it's like, you get to see all of this class struggle play out in this microcosm for you, and you get to see, how we all know life works, how we all know this country works, capitalism works. We're going to see all of that play out, and it's going to happen with who gets listened to, who gets say, these schools that have all of this clout, power, money are gonna, they hold sway, and that's the thing. And so many schools, I mean, even from where I'm from originally, like the Big Ten area, like Big Ten's a power conference, but like again, like it's a good example here. They're like the 4 billion billionaire versus a Bezos. You know what I mean? When it comes to the power that the SEC holds, and it's just it's monopolizing college sport. This is what certain people have wanted the entire time. Why would you not if you're them? So yeah, it's pretty crazy to see what's happening with that. I know Nate also has a lot to say on that. I don't want to cover too much on that before he hops on. But yeah, I mean, long and short, it's monopolizing. It's the direction this goes. If they could run it truly like a pro sport and just have one league, absolutely, they would hands down do that. Do I think that the mid majors will cut football? Oh, absolutely. I definitely see the fallout of this affecting schools in that way for sure. How do you, again, it comes down to like the power that they have. And, if you're the school that only gets to play because, like, let's say you're Troy and Alabama just wants to kick the shit out of you like once every other year, is the payout from that versus what it's going to cost? Is that going to be worth it to keep it around? And what happens when, these leagues get so big they don't need a Troy anymore? There will come a time when maybe they'll have one exercise game, right? Like maybe one, if not less. So yeah, you get to that point. I don't know how the small schools are going to be able to do it, how they're going to be able to keep up, how they're going to get TV rights, how they're going to get, it's all going to be consolidated. It's all going to be monopolized. I definitely think you're going to see a lot of that. And D2, I mean, for what D2 has going for it, can they learn from that? Can they try to, I don't know. I mean, it's such an unknown, with what's going on. So it's the fallout of this. I mean, the fallout of this is going to be huge. Hey, what's up, Nate?
What's going on? What's going on? As a Husker fan, I hate Texas. And you are not alone. I think most of Oklahoma State fans, Kansas State, Kansas Jayhawks, Baylor Bears, forget I'm not a fan of the Baylor Bears. They can go take a hike. I'm going to try to not curse as much. It's just it's unimaginative, right? BYU. I mean, Baylor is no better than BYU, so I don't know why the Big 12 was like, we're not going to take BYU. Well, why not? You already have Baylor. I mean, it's not like you got some moral high ground to stand on here. Let's pull up. That makes me think. Let's pull up the Baylor, student code. Go ahead, Justin.
So I want you to address this. I was answering Jeffrey's question there. I was at the end, but I'd love to get your take on that. And that's, how many mid majors do you think are going to cut football?
Oh, it's definitely going to happen. I mean, look, I know. Sorry, I'm late, everybody.
It's all good, man.
Breakthrough news earlier. I'm also dealing with some some health issues. Nothing just I'll just leave it at that. Some changes. Ditching some carbs and sugar and changing up a couple medications and just trying to get the right balance. Teaching summer school right now with the 8th grade, rising 9th graders, and I will say that. Let me just give a little soliloquy. I find it fascinating on that note, seeing here in Jersey at least, and the contrast where I grew up in Florida. Those kids were in school all last year, and of course all the teachers since August. All right. So, I mean, I'm not even going to get in. We've talked about the issues of the opening up, whatever, but it's just from the perspective of sociologically, what seeing kids that have been isolated for 15, 16 months. And these are all working class or poor black and brown kids in, North Jersey area, and to see them like try to like re-socialize and stuff is kind of fascinating. Like I don't really know. I don't have like a larger point, but just like there's a lot of these are gonna be big issues. I mean, like kids are talking about at formative ages and teenage years, just having that disrupted. I can't imagine what that would be like during my time. It'd be incomprehensible because like this technology, if this would have happened in like the early mid 2000s, like they just would have like everything would have stopped. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you had some like hippie teachers like, let's go out to the woods, and like like some sort of like William Wordsworth dancing with the daffodils, like like, oh, like we just return to nature, and like that's how we cure the ills of industrialization and pollution. We just dance with the daffodils, and of course, not said in that Wordsworth is you got to have land to do that, and people that own a bunch of land tend not to like people that are not of their class background playing on their land and dancing with the daffodils. So kind of let's say, be charitable, say a blind spot from some of those romantic poets. But yeah, man, it's like some fascinating stuff going on sociologically now, not to mention some fascinating vaccine discussions with some 15-year-olds today. Just straight up like, I want to have kids one day. I'm not taking that. All right, man. I don't think that's true, but like, I'm not. Look, it's your body, and like that's your temple, right? That's not. Yeah. I'm not gonna tell you whatever, but there's some kind of that's the thing. But I want to get the larger point. Like, I guess, like I hate how like gaslighting's kind of become cliche now because it has kind of become that, but there is so much just like just daily normalized mental grind. It's like for people that live a hand to mouth like existence where like just having to grind. There's not much attention being paid to you as a kid growing up. The alienation you feel, the anger you feel. I mean, I got one young man who's like already just keeps like getting caught, like getting in fights, smoking, like puffing, smoking in the bathroom, like like getting arrested, like just different stuff, and like so, and now I'm gonna have to be like kind of buddy with them and stuff. But it's like there's these sort of things, like these problems are seen as like just failures of the individual, and to a certain extent, like you can't excuse like absurd type behavior, like no matter what condition, but the act as if all of the dysfunction that goes on within this system, and I am going to get back to like kind of like what we're talking about with the sports angle, is it's a byproduct of like the artificial scarcity that's created, and then and the fact that creates the rat race, and then it creates this sort of fetishized like look at the hustle, like I remember there was like How to Make It in America, the HBO show about like 15 years ago, right? And it was all like glorifying the grind, like, yo man, like it's what more do you want, bro? Like it's like that the immigrant, the petty bourgeois immigrant narrative, and like look, I mean, I get it. If you come from a place that's like under-resourced country, that's like you come in like it's understandable, but like at the same time, that whole mentality, man, like yeah, I got you, Jeffrey. Yeah. Did you teaching out in Omaha or where? Lincoln or where? Anyways, but that whole mentality, man, like it serves power. It's sort of like what we were saying with the Rawless Chapman. There's nothing about SOS Cuba that was anything brave. You're literally putting something on your hat that is making the most powerful people here in the empire happy as they could be, beaming from cheekbone to cheekbone. All right, and I need to start putting on some makeup. What do you think, Justin? Yeah, the glare, man, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, well, there's cloths for that, man. You don't need makeup. I'll send you some.
All right, cool. Anyway, so getting back. Anyways, these are things that, I mean, the whole stuff about the vaccine. Instead of like my anger in terms of like people not trusting stuff, why don't we look at the fact that Big Pharma has literally created conditions where like, why would people trust them? And instead of like getting mad at people like that are the obvious people, the spreaders of disinformation, these people have like jacked up prices on every drug you can imagine. claims it
Yep.
all because like they say they have to recoup R&D costs. Totally acts as if like they don't get like money up front and investment money. I mean, it's different. I'm talking about the tech companies now, but almost like all these big industries get seed money from government, sources, and yet they act like it's just like an imagined, just wealth they just created out of nothing. And yet we have to continue paying exuberant prices because, so that's what people know about Pfizer, about like
Yeah.
not Merck, but
Yeah.
that's what people know about Moderna. These companies, not so much Moderna. I mean, Moderna, I think like more Pfizer, Johnson and Johnson, Merck. Those are like kind of the big three I think of. AstraZeneca in Europe,
Yeah.
but people like it's not just the history, but the obvious history of Tuskegee experiments. Like, and you look back at syphilis and how that was injected into like black people to study them, the eugenics of this country's history. But it's about to this day, like medicines, basic stuff that they just jacked up constantly. And then people stay in jobs, like whether they like them or not. Like it's not even an option to consider doing something else because you are tethered to that health insurance plan, especially if you're someone with a chronic, degenerative condition like I have with my back and the disc and stuff like that. Hoping for some like regeneration of stem cells one day and just pump them into the back.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but anyways, that's where this distrust comes from for most working class people, for people that aren't just like bad actors purveying this like BS because they're getting paid to, but like where there's genuine skepticism of this big monstrosity comes from, and to totally deny that and to act like there's just like big tech's like playing this great role, just deplatforming conspiracy theorists and not differentiating that very important distinction between like just total just fraud politicians, right, that are representing the most reactionary interests and acting as if them and genuine skepticism of what big pharma does. Like it's so clear to me. I don't know. I don't understand why more people aren't talking about why it is. Why don't we put the blame on the conditions that big pharma has created through their lobbying apparatus, through the pricing of their drugs, through scapegoating recouping R&D costs, and saying that like that's the only way we can actually develop and innovate, and understand that is the root. They understand, how can I trust a company that has like caused my family member who's going through a life-threatening situation? I mean, we're not even talking about cancer stuff, or that's just like, that is so, all this sentimental bullshit with like cancer, like when people get these cancer stories, ESPN, the Jimmy V Foundation, and like, cancer research never highlights the fact that when people actually get cancer that don't have, aren't lucky enough to win the lottery, they get highlighted by Tim Tebow up there on the SB stage or something like that, or some other like, celebrity adjacent person that's going to like pub their story and make it a sentimental type story that they can pump out on ESPN and tie it to sports. That like those people have a hell because they're going to have their homes foreclosed on, they're going to have medical bankruptcy, all this stuff while they're fighting for their lives. But no, it's just dumb people who love Trump.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Here's the reason that they can't put the blame. And when I say they, I mean we mean media and our two-party monopoly on politics here. Here's why. When you've got these two parties that have all the same interests and all the same goals, they have to have a division line somewhere. So you have to have one, because they don't care about us. Neither cares about us. So you have to have one take the position of, the vaccines are stupid, but because of freedoms. And the other side going, hey, just do it though. So then it becomes
just do it.
Then and it's literally, and that is the perfect fake trench, right? Like that is the perfect, like these sides aren't even fighting. They don't even dislike each other. They actually get along quite well. But you got to have that dividing line to feed to people, to give them, their appearance of being separate. When again, they have all the same interests. They have all the same, they have all the same goals. But we're already getting fun stuff like Biden already saying that the Russians are already attacking this next election.
They already are. And let's not forget that I was watching the women's volleyball game after I went on Breakthrough News, and I'll show you a few like clips from that here in a minute. Just not just the, obviously I want to promote my lovely self here, but I also want to like shout out Breakthrough News and the good work Eugene Perrier and Rania Khalek are doing there. Rania had right before me Kevin Costola on, who she's long had hosted with the Unauthorized Disclosure Podcast, co-hosted with Unauthorized Disclosure Podcast. So what they're doing is really, really, constantly, high quality content with good politics, which is not always hard to find. Because look, I'm not front, we're not like high quality right now. We got too much going on. I want to get to a point one day where, production, value of this is hopefully up to what my own standards are. Unfortunately, there are some health issues and other things I got to get straight in my own life right now. I'm kind of working on, and actually the social aspect helps. The worst thing for me right now going through some different stuff is just laying around, but the back pain stuff being coupled with other mental health stuff, and that I'm sure you already tackled some Simone Biles stuff, and I don't know. I didn't hear what you said.
No, we haven't. I mainly started on the fact, just to throw this out there, just because I have to get a Yankees jab in there. I mainly launched right into how poor Joey Gallo's on an airplane right now, shaving off his beard.
Well, you have to have standards, Justin. Life is full of contradictions here. So,
yeah, you got to have a team full of cops. You have to have a team.
For those of you who don't know, the Yankees want to have a nice, I'm a Yankees fan, the evil empire, all that, whatever. 27-time World Series champion, the New York Yankees. I'm sorry. It's I get it. I understand why people hate the Yankees, but at the same time, a lot of
I hate that rule. That's a dumb rule.
Well, you have to make sacrifices if you want to succeed in the business world, Justin.
Just once, I'd like them to trade for a player. I'd like them to trade for a player who just goes, nope.
Yeah, nope. So those of you who don't know, if you play for the Yankees, you will not be allowed to play unless you're clean shaven, and they kind of making some exception with Derek Cole.
The mustache can't go below the corners of your mouth.
Yeah. Nestor Cortez is pushing the envelope on that. All right, I don't know if you've seen that. Yeah. It's an interesting mustache. All right, Garrett Cole had his short haircut. I guarantee you, if George Steinbrenner, Papa Steinbrenner, not Hal, his son who wants to be the antithesis of his dad, basically never says anything now. And look, it's funny how certain Yankee fans are oh, where's George Steinbrenner? The same people that were oh, he's ruining baseball. He's constantly firing every manager every 2 seconds, and now they're we need Steinbrenner back. It's just why you can't listen to fans if you're ever trying to actually construct a roster.
No.
People most of the most fickle people ever, oh, our pitcher got shelled today. Let's trade everyone. Anyway, so yeah, Joey Gallo is probably shaving on a Yankee private jet right now.
On
his way from the DFW Metroplex to the Bronx. Actually, he'll be landing about 3 miles away from where I'm broadcasting right now, as within the hour, I think. Actually, they have Yes Network that was had a Gallo tracker going with the plane taking off. Yeah, so yeah, and he's gonna come save things, man. Honestly, his OPS, his on base percentage is actually a lot better than you would think. He's his batting average is low. He strikes out a lot, but everyone strikes out a lot in baseball now. It's that.
Everyone strikes out a lot, but he's 6'5", 235. When he makes contact, it goes a long way.
Yeah, and not to mention, he also has another year of team control on him. So let's we're not you can listen to sports radio for endless banner of that, but we will have.
That's all you missed. That and a little Cuba shit.
We will have we'll make it known it's a sports only episode at some point. We need to do that because it's life is tough enough anyways, and it doesn't mean we crit the idea of just sports fandom is escapism, but at the end of the day, you can criticize something and still consciously engage. You just have to understand kind of what it is. It's sort of I just think it's important that a lot of the problem with that is people just never critically engage, and then so therefore their sports fandom is not coming at a place that's healthy for their own lives, really, and putting it in perspective, or what they're demanding of the athletes on the field. And that's I guess a good segue of this whole Simone Biles thing. Look, this is the thing. I mean, everyone had their own suspicions about like, the timing, whatever. People always wonder about what human motivations are. But at the end of the day, when you're talking about athletic competition, especially like a leftist perspective, and it's like when it's we're not in a situation where people like really have control over their own body and how like their athletic, how they get to dictate the terms of like their athletic performance of their body. It's like there's so many rules and stuff. So at the end of the day, it's just like if an athlete doesn't want, feels that's where they are in their headspace, it's like you can't read people's minds. All right. Now, if something comes out later that like there's like verifiable evidence, there's some like, book deal that like you can write some story about, but there's no evidence of that. So a lot of this stuff of like these right wingers, it's coming from a place of like she disgraced her country. It's coming from a place of like what Russiagate gave birth to, and the idea that like by not taking part and you being like our best shot to win a bunch of medals, the same thing they criticize like China for. They're just trying to run up and win a bunch of medals and just like a bunch of meaningless sports. First of all, what does it mean? Half these sports. I've never even heard of half the sports. Every time we have the Olympics, like I'm not being critical of them. It's just they are obscure.
How dare China give these? How dare China give these athletes a chance? Right. Healthcare, pay them better than we pay our. How dare this system create all these good athletes? How dare?
But like so many liberals like to say they're just they are actually the most intense capitalists of them all, Justin. Like they're like they just hide behind the banner of like the Communist Party, but they're really like, and then the irony is like a lot of like just the worst kind of like latte libs, shit libs, like that are like Manhattanites and shit. You run into are like believe without any like moment of reflection, pause, doubt at all that all of them are like that like. They'll say straight up that Han Chinese are the most racist people ever. Now, like, sure, there's like within any like bourgeois like elements of like a class of people from a country, there's going to be racism. I mean, like that was something they struggle with, and there's certainly you can find plenty of anecdotal examples of immigrants that are from a certain class of Chinese origins that are going to have that. Same thing with Indian Americans, same thing with Pakistani Americans, same thing with just run down the laundry list. All right. Like that's just going to be a thing in a system that's dominated by the kind of predatory economic model we have where to succeed, you got to like, knock somebody else off basically. Yep. Even if you don't like actively think you're doing that, it's like, that's the game you're sort of playing. And so this idea now that like China is like cultivating these like lab like athlete babies that come out and like conquer the world and win a bunch of medals. Don't we literally have a medal count thing constantly? Like, in the Cold War days, you'd have like, the Soviet flag, the American flag, and just like the medal ticker, we're like, we got to beat them. It's wild, but yet like it's another example of projection. It's literally like projection at its finest.
Alan McLeod did a really good screenshot side by side today of two New York Times articles. One is the one about the evil Chinese and their athlete mills. And the second is literally titled, Britain's huge investment in Summer Olympic sports pays off. And if you read the articles, both countries doing the exact same thing. Both. Same motivation, same tactics, same everything. And it's literally a side by side of what happens when the Chinese do it and what happens when an ally does it. And the different framing around those two, just in the headlines alone. Evil, genius. Because they fully support that what Great Britain did, it paid off. The British are doing is working.
Well,
but what the Chinese are doing is evil.
You got to remember, Justin, the British beat the Russians in the Great Game, right? In India, right? Rudyard Kipling wrote about it,
Yeah.
Like, if you want to read imperialist literature 101, go read like Kim by like Rudyard Kipling and like how he like literally wears like brown face, like navigating the country. Like, I guess it's supposedly like a fictional character, but it,
it's bad.
I got my suspicions there with that.
My quick take on the Simone Biles thing is real short, and that is that all these people with takes, they're not her. So I don't care. Like, end of story. Like, I don't, when it comes to these people, like, I get their framework, I get where they're coming from and all of that, but like, if you're not her, you don't know what's going on. There's one thing that we can do, and that is we can look at one thing, and that is that you can clearly see, like, the right's pissed because she's letting down her country and all this. And why is she letting down her country? Because she is the best at what she does. And when the best at what they do has a moment like she had where she literally lost herself in the air, that's not a skill thing. That's a mental thing. You lose yourself that badly to where you completely rework the thing you're doing, because it's gymnastics. It's on paper. You have to put in what you're going to do so the judges know what to expect. Like, this isn't like just what you feel like doing in the moment. Like, you have a routine, you have, all these things are built in, and she didn't do what everyone knew she was going to do because her routine was written down and handed in. You know what I mean? Like, she lost herself, and that right there, that's all the proof I need to know that something's going on. And I don't, it's not my business what she gets to say. If she wants to continue, she gets to say if she doesn't. That's all I'm saying.
She was literally actually personally like sexually abused by Dr. Larry Nassar.
And this Olympics, they've made her talk about it more than any other. Hey, you know what I mean?
And you talk about like him, doing stuff to your vagina when you were underage,
and
like, I mean,
and at the same time,
I mean, not being like, I mean, I don't know if women phrase something like that explicitly, but I just mean like, that's essentially what they're doing. They're literally like, or whatever their body part is, they're asking you about the most intimate parts of yourself, and the most traumatic, like, by this monster, like Dr. Larry Nassar. Like, I mean, imagine having that guy as your doctor. Just imagine that. Like, how do you not have mental health problems? Like, I mean, like, seriously. I mean, I'm not trying to be funny. Just like, I mean, like,
no, sorry, I was laughing at your A lady going off in the background.
Yeah, what is that? Shut up.
No, and it's
Alexa, be quiet.
Thanks for chatting. Quick question.
No!
On a scale from 1 to 5 stars.
What is happening? Why is she talking? Like,
she's done. She's done. Leave her alone.
To try another social bot, just say, let's chat.
Oh my God. So right. Yeah, no, and it's and the thing is that, where the pressure also, I so much solidarity for her for coming to this Olympics in the first place. She said exactly why she was doing it, and that is to represent this country for an organization and for a U.S. gymnastics program that failed her, and to apply that pressure to them. So she's essentially saying, I'm going to go. I don't want to. She easily could have been done. I mean, she already, she already had GOAT status in her sport. You know what I mean? So for her to say, I'm going to go, and the reason I'm going is because this organization that I'm representing is explicitly let me down, and it continues to let me down. And I'm the last person on this team and in this organization that competes that was still affected by this person. And once I'm gone, they're going to sweep this under the rug. And I'm here to keep it alive because they need to do better. They need to be better. And I'm just saying, like, so huge solidarity for that, on her for that push to keep them accountable, to keep them going. But at the same time, like, that toll that's on her because of that. And I'm not saying that it wasn't, she didn't bring some of that on herself. She's literally saying, this is why I'm here. And then the media going, yeah, let's talk about that. Let's rehash it. All this pressure again,
because I want to keep writing about it like a lot.
Yeah.
And then I want to keep asking you like more questions, so my editors will like that because like it's juicy, it's edgy content.
So and again, I mean, if anybody, hasn't seen it, I would say all the proof you need, first of all, is in her own words. And if she doesn't feel like she's there and able to do this, by all means, step out. Number two, you can see her lose focus when she's in the air and upside down, which is not a great place to lose focus.
Yeah. So Justin, like one of the biggest ones I keep hearing like from around the board is like, well, she took a spot from another like gymnast who could have helped like the team. Like, go ahead, just like that. Yeah, I mean, we all did that, but go ahead and explain why that's like a stupid take, and maybe like also because like people like that's going around a lot. It's also like the whole thing. If like how did it just like occur to her that she was having mental health stuff like right before? Is she trying to exploit this to get attention? Look, even if she was like, if she's able to shine a light on the things that Justin just mentioned, so what? Like good actually, right? Like I'm not saying it is that. I'm just saying like I wouldn't care if it was.
Yeah, let's say Kaepernick was still playing. Right. But he decided to retire a year early and stop taking it. Hypothetical. And he's the last one that's protesting, and he just decides to leave when he could be around another year and keep this thing going. That's kind of what she's doing. Right. Yeah. Like she is keeping this thing alive because once she's out, she's the last one. There is no more U.S. gymnastics competitors that were affected by this man and by their explicit like sweeping it under the rug and letting it happen for decades. There are so many girls that were affected by this man that never needed to be, had literally USA Gymnastics done anything to stop it when they knew. So like, as far as like her taking another spot, first of all, are you kidding? She is the greatest at this sport. All she has to do is be like, they're going to be like, yeah, you're on the team. She could have been like, no, give this to someone else. They would have been like, no, it's you.
No. Like they don't need to be in the Olympics.
Yeah. Two, what kind of pessimist goes into something? Do you think she got to where she got by presupposing she's going to fail in the future? That's not how athletes don't work that way. At any point, did you go into an athletic competition going, well, this is going to be terrible. I'm going to do awful. I'm probably not going to make it, and I'm going to want to quit. That's not how an athlete is wired. You know what I mean?
You've already lost if you think like that.
Exactly. And you don't get to this point if you think like that. So for them to say, well, if she even had an inkling, no, athletes rise above. They do things. You know what I mean? They do things. What? Plus, her spot is guaranteed. She didn't have to compete in trials for it because she's who she is. That spot's just hers if she wants it.
Look, at its essence, let's just because a lot of times this just isn't pointed out enough. What is sport? It is the pushing of the human body to do things that inspire, that can inspire creativity, artistry, the pushing of the imagination of what the bounds of our limitations and biological constraints are. It's an imaginative thing. It's something about how you respond when you're hurt, when you're not injured, right? Yeah. But when you're tired, you're fatigued, how you're able to persevere in through adversity, right? How you're able to create beauty, how you're able to use the body to create something beautiful. Now look at this, I will start cursing it. This mofo right here. Can you imagine, I'm leaving this picture up there, intentionally, because I just want, it is disgusting, it's vile. And it's people need to, not just, forget that, this dude, was just allowed, over and over. And I also want to, talk about this, maybe prepare a little more next time. What liability is Michigan State University still face? Because I can't imagine. They're completely. They have immunity from further civil cases.
It is. It's ridiculous.
How are they not paying out money all the time?
Through this, they actually found that the woman who ran their Title IX during all of this also protected so many other athletes of sexual assault. by literally like, so if you were raped on campus by a basketball player, by a football player, by anyone in Michigan State athletics, you had to go talk to this woman, and she was involved with Nassar, and she literally would try to talk you out of what happened to you. And I think she got fired, but like it was like what they did was they essentially like gutted staff. They gutted people like her, and she deserved to be fired. If she's going to sit there and like talk to college students and be like, is that really what happened to you? Maybe you just people out and save those athletes. So yeah, she deserved to be fired, but that's the kind of shit that Michigan State pulled to save themselves further. They just went, you know what? If we fire everybody, you know, how can look, we're the good guys. We fired everybody. We cleaned house. You know, which is more than USA Gymnastics did. And that's kind of my point, right? Like all those same people that swept it under the rug at USA Gymnastics, all of them still work there.
Yeah, no doubt. You know what we should do in a few minutes is maybe just like live stream a couple picks of the NBA draft and just like listen to the awful like commentary of like what these guys are saying. Like,
it's been bad. Oh, before you hopped on,
like speaking like, whoa, man, they're like talking about like I don't know. Just go ahead. Yeah, what were you gonna say?
So like they keep getting all these weird celebrities to talk about draft picks. Like before you hopped on, Michael Simon was like the chef. Was like standing in front of like
I really want to hear what his take is.
Was standing in front of a barbecue pit talking about a pick for Houston.
Yeah,
and like
he's got to sell.
No, Cleveland. Sorry, Cleveland.
Pit. Look,
yeah, Cleveland.
And barbecue go hand in hand, and he's trying to make money. It's all about making money, Justin. And like isn't that great?
I don't go to Kansas City for a good pulled pork sandwich. I go to Cleveland.
I go to watch like infomercials when I'm watching NBA draft or like why you should buy my barbecue. Like
no, but like he literally was talking. He was talking about like it was like a pre-recorded thing, like congratulating Cleveland's pick, and it's like what next? Like Loki's probably going to say something next. You know what I mean? We're literally going to have Hiddleston in character as Loki talking about a draft pick because it's all just tie-ins at this point.
Yo, Evan
Mobley
feels a lot more welcome to, you know, Hard Rock City, Cleveland, home of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the mistake on the lake, than he would have otherwise without that welcome. So, Justin, quit being so cynical, all right?
Yeah.
All right, anyways.
Hey, Cade Cunningham is a Detroit Piston, and that makes me so happy.
Yeah, that is pretty awesome, man. At worst, he's like the next Chris Middleton, we'll put it that way. And at best, he's Luka Doncic. So, yeah, definitely. All right. So, anyways,
wanted to point something out.
Before I go on, I'm going to show a couple, like I mentioned earlier, show a few clips from the Breakthrough News, Amazon. But before that, we talked a little bit about the realignment thing. And I mentioned that I was going to show this Baylor code of conduct, which is funny because they're in the Big 12, right? The same conference that said BYU couldn't come in because of LGBTQ issues, right? So check this out. All right, this is pretty cool here, right? Not really. And by cool, I mean not cool. But Baylor University, you're reigning national champions of NCAA Division I basketball, and also he's been way too successful in football for what they should be the last 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
Because I love how they changed it. We welcome all students into a safe and supportive environment in which to discuss and learn about a variety of issues, including those of human sexuality. The university affirms the biblical understanding of sexuality as a gift from God. Christian churches across the ages and around the world have affirmed purity in singleness and fidelity in marriage between a man and a woman as the biblical norm. Temptations to deviate from this norm include both heterosexual sex outside of marriage. Like, I love how they're throwing that in there now because they're like, that gives us like a hedge against like being called homophobic, right? It's not just like homophobic. We're like against like people cheating on their spouses. You know? Like, all right.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Yeah, listen, how about this? And homosexual behavior. It's just behavior, you know, it's just like bad behavior. You go to the fucking dean's office, right? And you just like either not correct the bad behavior, get it expelled. And that's it. I guess like repent and like reflect on what a deviant.
You get to go to Milo. You get to go to Milo's reassignment camp.
There you go. Yeah. It is thus expected. Yeah, Bill Maher's buddy, right? It is thus expected that Baylor students will not participate in advocacy groups which promote understandings of sexuality that are contrary to biblical teaching. The university encourages students struggling with these issues to avail themselves of opportunities for serious, confidential discussion and support through the Spiritual Life Office or the Baylor University Counseling Center. Justin, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I totally agree that that the Big 12 should definitely keep BYU out because of their awful homophobic stances alone, because they have no schools inside. Isn't TCU part of them? I mean, they're like also a Christian university.
They're a little like they're not like Southern Baptist though. I mean, like
okay.
I don't think their code of conduct. I would have heard about it if it was. But
I went to Waco. I went to Waco once, and that was actually to go see like
to join the Branch Davidians.
No, but I did go to the property. I did look at the memorials. I did look at the the names, the ages on those. Man, that's a lot of kids.
Yeah, but Janet Reno, man.
A lot of kids. The FBI burned a lot of kids.
So, like this group, like that. I mean, it does annoy me that they're national champions now. Like why? Why do people go there, man? Like, why can't people just eviscerate them in recruiting? Like, I just cannot understand how they just keep recruiting at this level. Like, I mean, I really can't. They got like Aranda now, from LSU, and previously was at Wisconsin. I mean, we'll see after his first season. It was a COVID year, but I mean, I just don't get it, man. Like, and especially basketball, like how they just keep doing this in football and men's basketball, the two most revenue sports that like get the most visibility. It really grinds my gears a little bit. I mean, like looking at that. I mean, just how gross is that? Joy.
Having lived in the state of Washington for so long. And obviously I was on the opposite side of the state as Gonzaga, but at the same time, like just wanting Gonzaga, like I think their coach has been able to do more with less than most coaches. Like you give him Mike Krzyzewski talent, like what can he do? I mean, over the last 20 years, you look at how on the cusp, like there's no team that just sits more on the cusp than Gonzaga. And watching the year they had last year, the talent they had last year, all of that, just to end to Baylor was just, I mean, that was, it hurt. It hurt. Baylor.
All right, so here's the long promised part of this.
News. Want to get that one in there. Thanks.
Yeah. And also, don't forget to throw in money in the super chat, and we will
read
your comment,
right.
assuming that it's not anything too crazy or inappropriate.
Indeed.
I should
give Ron your money.
Worthy in terms of
I'll be the arbiter.
Submitting much for being with us.
Hey, Eugene and Ronnie, what's up? Can y'all hear me all right?
We can.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Good.
So, I mean, obviously, when we're talking about the Olympics, there's probably only one place we can start, and that is the broader. I mean, I almost hate to call it a controversy, but I guess it's become a controversy around Simone Biles leaving the competition because of mental health issues, taking herself out, basically. And there are so many ways that we can start. I mean, almost in a way, maybe the first place I want to start, I guess, is the better way to say it, Nate. It feels like over the past few years, we've had more and more conversation around athletes and mental health and taking it seriously, and it's very important. But then anytime an athlete, especially a female athlete, then actually does something to preserve their mental health, there's then this just unbelievable avalanche of criticism of them. And it just feels like there's such an imbalance between the conversation that's being driven by all the leagues and everything and the reality still of how people are seen from taking care of their health.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways to go with this. I got to try to squeeze it all in here. But with Simone Biles and this thing, what you see in general with these, whenever there's a mental health thing, you always have like the the support for the general idea of mental health. But then what happens is, I mean, to some degree, it's natural. We always think people are skeptical with sports and stuff. You know, what's the motive? What's the angle? But, you know, a lot of this is like, is she getting a book deal? Is she going to make more money like doing this and then perform, you know, than being there? Is she letting her teammates down, right? All these kind of things that are piling on there that are leaving out the fact that, all right, first of all, it's no one's real business if she doesn't compete or not compete in this thing, right? It's like at the end of the day, like, not to mention that, like, you know, these Olympics going on, the number of you know, COVID cases going on in Tokyo, the number of you know, just like also just gentrification that goes on in every Olympics to make sure that, like, people, these stadiums that are obsolete. Just look at Brazil and look at the number of stadiums, there's white elephants just sitting there, and this happens all the time. I mean, my personal opinion is that they just should have it at one place, whether it's Athens, Greece, where it started, or wherever, and that's where it is, you know, every 4 years. And that would, but of course, we live in a world that's dominated by a neoliberal, hegemonic sort of ideology, you know, buttressed by the United States, and that's not part of the program. I mean, all these things. We have next year, we have Qatar coming in to host a World Cup that's been much maligned. But it's not even, I mean, it'd be funny if it wasn't so just tragically terrible. With like so many workers from Nepal and Pakistan and India and other places where they come and they take their passports and they die and no one should do anything. So with Simone Biles, though, yeah, it's like, I will admit though, I am suspicious of like the way mainstream media is talking so much about, oh, heroism, you know, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, there's different, I feel like it's almost, there's a liberal wing of the ruling class that wants to just say these things in generalities. They don't really care about Simone Biles and the underlying conditions that lead to mental health problems, though. That's my issue. We should stand in solidarity, stand up for Simone Biles being attacked in ridiculous, you know, ways. You know, people saying stuff like, "Oh, she took a spot from somebody else," and that, you know, I don't think this was some elaborate thing. That the implication is that she's been planning this, right, so that she would have that moment, platform herself, withdraw, and then suddenly, you know, I don't know. I just don't buy that, right? I mean, but so anyways, yeah.
There's also the issue, you know, I love watching women's gymnastics.
This is your favorite Olympic
sport? It's like always, yeah, my favorite since I was a kid. Like I mean, there's something about it. It's amazing, the crazy stuff that people are able to do with their bodies, and they're so strong, and it's really fun to watch. But it of course hides that gymnastics is actually one of the most abusive, probably one of the most abusive elite sports. I mean, from a very young age, both psychologically and physically. And that's not to take away from the really amazing physical feats that these athletes are able to do. Just the fact that it is a very competitive and psychologically like breaking kind of sport where you are under a lot of pressure. And then of course, what people aren't talking about, and Eugene, you know, we and you had talked about this the other day, and you had reminded me of this, is that the reason she even came out of retirement was to bring attention to the issue of this. What was he, like, the
Larry
doctor?
Nassar,
Dr. Larry Nassar at Michigan State University, and you had Team USA Olympic team gymnastics. Yeah.
And he had abused several of the girls that he was working with, and she was one of them, and she was trying to bring attention to that, and that's one of the reasons she came out of retirement. And I've noticed that that's not really being discussed in the aftermath of this. And then the other issue at the same time happening in parallel to this is the sort of insertion of geopolitical posturing within this, because of course the Russian, I don't even know what to say, the Russian team,
Olympic
it's not really
Committee.
the Russian. Thank you. The Russian Olympic Committee, and we can get into why that's who won. But the Russian Olympic Committee won, and the right wing is losing it because they're like, oh my God, this, you know, America lost, but also liberals are losing it because they have like a hysteria about Russia because of Russiagate. Yeah. And I mean, there's liberals tweeting some of the most insane things, like, and I will credit Queer a la Mode on Twitter for this. A good friend of mine, Ryan Wentz, who actually posted these screenshots. I'm going to read a couple of them. Russia gave Simone Biles Havana syndrome. Changed my mind. Anyone else think Simone Biles might have Russia syndrome? Russia hasn't won a women's gymnastics gold medal since 1992 till now. Interesting that the Russia team beat Team USA. I thought Russia was banned. All I have to say is Havana syndrome. So you have these weird conspiracist liberals, like serious people, actually turning this into a Simone Biles maybe has Havana syndrome. And of course, what they're referring to is this like fake sickness that people who work at the U.S. embassy got headaches, and they decided to call it some Russian virus that was spread.
But Rania, the
Cuban
director of the
embassy.
CIA, was on NPR, and he told me it was true.
That's all that matters. But I guess my broader question to this, of course, the other point to make is like Simone Biles didn't say she had any of the symptoms of Havana syndrome, so it's kind of weird to project that onto her. But as an athlete yourself, how do you, hey Juan, how do you see the kind of, especially around this Olympics in particular, it feels more Cold War-esque, than ever before. With the Russia situation, with the gymnastics and this like weird conspiracy about Havana syndrome, being angry Simone Biles let her country down. You've seen that sort of right-wing talking point. And then this other obsession with, well, China just like has camps. They send the children to camps they put them through Olympics camps. Like there's these crazy articles about China's abusing children by recruiting them for the Olympics. But what do you think about all that? The geopolitical obsession with elite sports?
Yeah, well, first of all, we have the right wing move now to boycott Beijing next year, right? Winter Olympics. You gotta boycott that. So that's already cranking up into high gear. I mean, this is like also gets at why there is such almost like a shared, like almost like a mass level psychosis in this country. I mean, I'm like teaching summer school right now. We're at work in Jersey City, and I got kids that are going into 9th grade, and you're hearing all sorts of stuff. Talking about the vaccine, and I started thinking like, where is this coming from? These are like working class Black and brown youth and Jersey City, and there's like stuff going out like, I might, not be able to have kids and whatnot. You realize it's like this insanity. It starts with the ruling class elites, like pushing, like, making people seem like if they're, unhappy, if they're fighting for Medicare for all, if they're, having issues in their own lives, and and it's leading to a total ability to like sort of self-actualize themselves. That somehow there's got to be some larger conspiratorial reason for our problems. It can't be the fact that we just don't provide basic essentials. So all this discourse about mental health now, you're hearing on like Good Morning America, which is just like, I only see that when I go to my like, PT place and like, and I'm in there and like they got the TV on. It's just unbelievable. It reminds me sometimes of just what people watch. And like, that's what people are hearing. And they're on there literally like, just, mental health. It's just it's so inspirational. It's like, that really isn't the message. I mean, it should be that like, it's inspiring that she's willing to go out on a limb like this. And we need to push back against people that are using this as some nationalistic, jingoistic nonsense about how Russia's like the source of all our problems and she let America down. And, because but it's crazy. It's like liberals are coming at it from this like idea of, Russiagate. And that's like the source of stuff that like somehow that got us Trump, and it's like that kind of psychosis. So the right wing in this country is coming at it from this idea of like, she let us down, and it's what's in this. It's tinged with the anti-BLM stuff too. Let's not lie. I mean, the hatred of Naomi Osaka is huge, and it's the idea of like this extraordinary resentment of the idea that the platform of the Olympics could be used to express any kind of politics. When the irony is just unbelievable. This is the most politicized event imaginable. I mean, the whole power dynamics. You're sitting there singing anthems of every country up there. You're like regimented. You can't move, and like if you look the wrong way, you could get like cut out of the ceremony and lose everything you've worked for. I mean, look at the Olympic Village. It's like, I mean, it's the beds suck. Like you don't really have much freedom. You're constantly surveilled. Like you get. I mean, they're like constantly testing.
They have phone tracking.
You can get DQ'd. It's unbelievable. So why is it that we're surprised that people have mental health issues is a larger question, I think. And the Russiagate stuff and all these different distractions, and it's not really Russiagate per se, but just the larger hysteria that's just sort of that's given birth to is just the byproduct of a larger society that doesn't provide for people's basic needs. And then you have, I'm sitting there with kids today, and kids are arguing about, I got vaccinated. And other one's like, man, I want to have kids. I want to have kids when I grow up. I'm like, I don't, we're just gonna do it. You got to do it with your body. But I don't think that's true. But I don't know. It's just like this stuff is not just the fault of individual people being like crazy. So I mean, it comes out of like people being gaslit on like an extraordinary level. So I don't know. Simone Biles, and we're seeing a lot of those fault lines just express themselves, I think.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, there's so many controversies. Obviously, coming in, there was the Sha'Carri Richardson thing, and then I saw
Eugene.
that story that emerged by that. I think it's
So no, yeah, you're muted, Nate.
Oh,
I got to throw one thing out real quick because they Russiagate so many times and all this like Havana syndrome thing. I got to throw something out really quick, and that is that like I live in a house with somebody who loves gymnastics, so I watched that whole final. The Russian team had 2 people fall off the beam, and they still won. They had 2 people fall off, not one. They had 2 people fall off, and they still won. Like
Justin, it sounds like you should just move to Russia. Just move, love it or leave it, man. America.
Like I just like this idea that like this is what cost it. Like you still had a great team. I'm pretty sure Lee won. Didn't she won individual gold? So it's like you still had an amazing gymnastics team, and you lost to a team that fell off the beam twice. Yeah. 2 different routines in a row. They had falls. I mean, like that's big points. And you still lost.
Russia is not even allowed to be in the Olympics right now.
They got to have
they're competing under like that little corporate like logo, Russian Olympic Committee, because of the Russian doping scandal.
And the only other thing I got to say before we say hi to Mike here, the only other thing I got to say is I just have to throw this out here as somebody for the last 21 years that suffers from migraines. Sometimes I don't get them for months. Sometimes I get 5 in a week. There is literally not a single symptom that's different between every Havana syndrome I have ever seen. Every official, like these people who go on, they get to go on NPR. They get to talk about their symptoms and all this stuff.
Yeah.
When my migraines come, they come with an aura. I lose vision. Sometimes my mouth can't move. I've gone to the ER twice thinking I had a stroke when it was literally just the mental storm that happens in my brain before a migraine comes. And that's all it is. And these people, and like migraines affect like 6% of the population. Hey. And that's kind of about how many people have said, like of all the U.S. diplomatic employees, about 6% say these are migraines. Like it's insane to me.
Well,
like,
I mean, but real quick, could you even blame Cuba given what the U.S. has like done in terms of trying to assassinate it? Like if they could come up with some electro frequency, like I'm not saying they are, but I'm just saying like we are down there with an illegal base in Guantanamo Bay. We're allowing a crazy flotilla of like reactionary criminals in Miami to like
they're gonna go shoot off fireworks.
Yeah, freedom works, Justin. Freedom works.
It's insane.
Right? Yeah. And Mike can give us a little more insight on that. Like about Mike is our resident South Florida reactionary expert here. Whatever the South Florida, the Venezuelan and Cuban right wing is plotting, might
with their fireworks flotilla.
Only because you got to be prepared for what the enemy's up to, right? Mike, what's up?
Yeah.
What's up, man? I had a little Havana syndrome. I didn't drink enough water earlier, and it just the rush.
I know, right to the dome.
I haven't told you, man. So like I'm on day 6 now of like no carbs, like hardly any carbs, hardly any sugar.
Oh yeah, man. That's Havana.
Man, I lost 10 pounds in 5 days, man. Like, I mean, I was also working out pretty hard with the only reason I like got up to like the weight I got up to for like, I'm at 6'6.5" and like was 290 now I'm back to 280. But like, that's really not that much given like, I mean, it's overweight what I want to be, but like given the height weight ratio, but I was always lean, man. I'm like, dang, I wish I could go back to those high school days when I was pounding all the Celtec creatine shakes. He was lean, man, in high school at Lee, but like he was a tight end, caught a lot of passes and stuff. But then he got up to the most, I think, 295.
Okay. Yeah. How much you weigh now?
Like 230, maybe something. Yeah.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
It's a gargantuan family, Imagine having 2 kids that are 6'6".
You know what they say, man? Like northern Europeans, there's like there are tall genes up there. I guess
Like that
kind of
Viking blood, I guess.
yeah, Viking blood. You know, like
That's what they say.
pillagers. You know,
Yeah.
the Viking. It's that Viking that gene pool that kind of like created the ideology of like American and sort of like pillaging of the world today. You know, I'm just making
Yeah,
shit up.
that's
Like,
why.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah.
That's
they were like, Vikings pillage. Why don't we go pillage
Oh,
like everything? Just
one of
take
the
all this
best-
stuff, right?
Yeah. Especially with dreadlocks, there's a Viking.
yeah.
Viking locks, you know. Yeah.
Viking.
That's why us Scots lost to you guys. That's why us Scots lost to you. Me with
Hey,
my whole
for
5'9", 160 pounds.
Yo,
like we
hey,
didn't stand a chance,
yo,
man. We
look-
stood no chance.
Yo, look at my last name.
I know. Yeah. You know what? You conquered that.
Like, yo, I'm a Minnesota Viking. Right?
William Wallace was apparently 6'7", like Mel
Oh
Gibson.
yeah, he was. Oh yeah, Mel Gibson is William Wallace.
You know, my favorite
They're
part about
Oh.
William Wallace is in Braveheart. They're talking these these bourgeois liberalism notions of freedom and democracy
Yo,
that they're talking about. Well, under feudalism, like these terms didn't exist anymore.
under well, the people I really love are like petty bourgeois Americans that like feel a lack of like meaning and purpose in their life. So they're like the ones that like want to like watch some like British period dramas and some older like shit and be like, oh, like I just long for like the good old like the bygone era of like, oh, things were just so much like we're so unpleasant. Like, yo, to be honest with you, like things are like way better now than they've ever been. Yeah, people talk about going back like 200 years ago. That people's teeth are falling out when you're 30 years old. Like the idea that somehow like, I mean, we have a whole bunch of new problems and like and the issues of like inequity and who has access to them. But the notion that like, oh yeah, I want to go back and
Let's
those
be
were the
real.
good old days.
Let's be real. Who wants to go back? Let's be real about the people that want to go back.
Yeah.
I can't go too backwards.
Well,
It doesn't
bro,
look good.
you want to know something? I was just talking to a friend who recently went to Colonial Williamsburg, and I remember it was like a 9-year-old going there on vacation, and they are still to this day, they hire black people to like demonstrate in the like oh, this is crop growing. The Tidewater. Am I even joking? Google search it. Like
Nate, me and Nate went to the same middle school. We didn't know each other. He was a grade ahead of me. Oh, funny story, Nate. I actually saw
2 grades. Yeah.
2 grades. I actually saw Dante Hardeman at an event I was just at.
Oh, all right.
Former safety range, played for Illinois.
Cool.
No, we was talking about we had a assistant principal at Kirby Smith who would do Civil War reenactments. You remember that guy?
I've actually been to a couple of those as a kid because of my granddad. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I remember the funniest thing when they do these in the South, it's like they have to like beg people to like fight for the Union because like they're like trying to do this battle and they all want to be like Johnny Red. They're like, man, I'm gonna fight for the rebels, baby. Hell yeah! Like we kind of like need to have some Yankees though, like or else we can't put this on. They're like,
That's so bad.
God damn it! I'll put on that fucking Yankee blue shirt if I had to, but
They're having issues staffing.
I'm a rebel. They're having issue staffing, right? They all want to be on the gray team.
Right.
It's wild, man. So anyway, I'm mad at myself that I didn't make the point there. I was like, we got in the flow and got my steam going pretty good right after that. I got to get rid of this mic, by the way. It's awful. I don't know why I thought this thing. It's connected with the Starlet, and it's not. It should be better than it is. But anyway.
I just want to throw out, this is my only link to the Civil War, and that this is a relative of mine, and he was the last casualty of the Civil War, and it was all North. So,
May 13th? Yeah. Bro, that's like over a month after Lee surrendered to Grant.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, I'm just saying, like, when you guys talk about all this the southern part of the Civil War, man, that's like for all of us that grew up.
Like, just imagine like Nate just said, this happened. He died literally after the Civil War, so message hadn't gotten Like the pigeon didn't get to him on time.
God rest
Poor
John
guy.
Jefferson Williams' soul, man. He was out there fighting
Yeah.
these like
He's still
proto-fascists, man. Like, you know,
Hey.
they trying to literally maintain chattel slavery, you know, like man, that's wild. But the point I made, I wish I would have made though about the vaccine hesitancy, and where I think a lot of the blame lies is like what I said earlier before you got on here, Mike. Is that we don't talk enough about why a lot of not like where the Trump people and the people deliberately spewing misinformation from positions of power, but I mean like everyday people that really aren't coming at it in bad faith, that have like questions. A lot of it is rooted in the fact that big pharma has ripped people off for so long, for generations, jacking prices up, making like they've created a system where how can a lot of people trust them if people have been screwed over? So it's like we need to talk about how, look, you should get the vaccine. Like, I mean, I think so. I mean, like, it's the thing that I think it's the right thing. I don't think there's, even if they wanted to, the idea that like they're gonna taint some samples just going to like poor communities, like kill. I mean, it just doesn't even make sense. But instead of just like shouting people down about how they're dumb and they're stupid or whatever, that's not always what it is, man. It's not just like Fox News watchers and stuff. And I think a lot of it, I really believe now, is coming from a sense of like distrust over big pharma.
Nate, you know, I had to negotiate a contract with some at a hospital, and
I saw your tweet about rural health in Florida, rural county.
No, this is a hospital in North Florida. I won't name it. And you know, one of the proposals the company had was to mandate the vaccinations, and the fucking members, man, they wasn't going for it. You know, and this is at a hospital. You know, like less than 50% vaccination rate at a hospital from people who caught COVID-19 and work with patients. So I think there's a lack of education that, you know, you have this liberal notion of what CNN is doing, in which CNN, de Blasio, all those, you know, those type of clowns, in which they're just saying, the unvaccinated are scum.
Roll up your sleeve, be a man. That's like they had these NYC commercials of like roll the sleeve up.
The thing is, the problem is it all goes back to the state and the leaders who fucking lead the government. And so when you have, let's say in Florida, when you have a governor who passes a bill to stop vaccine passports, so you're already incepting that mind about the vaccine, but then he's also telling you, oh, get vaccinated, but also the CDC sucks, you know, and they're corrupt. You know what I'm saying? So it's like there's like mixed messages coming from those in power. You know, even when Trump was in office, he was big into getting the vaccine, but then he didn't want to take it publicly. You know what I'm saying? For his supporters to see it.
Even Trump's tweeting out, get vaccinated now.
I mean, even the CDC, for example, you know, like Jacksonville area, I mean, this probably has the largest rise of COVID-19 cases in the whole country, the greater Jacksonville area. You know, we're number one, Duval, Clay represent.
We're number one.
Yeah, but the problem with like where those rates have went up, but even the CDC, for example, you know, they changed their like recommendations in regards to masks. And why did they change their recommendation? Is because they had a vaccine and because capitalism needed to make money and you needed to open up, you know, and this was going to happen Biden or Trump. You know, it was like, you know, these institutions are always political and they always serve capital. You know what I'm saying? So even during the height of the COVID pandemic, they were making all these exemptions for hospitals, you know, for hospitals or so-called safety sector. So like the transportation industry is like, lack of safety or whatever. Who doesn't give a fuck? It's an important industry, quote unquote. You need to get to work. So like all these institutions are political, designed to serve the capitalist class, and even the CDC does that. So you're telling the masses misinformation. There's a lack of education, and one of the biggest ones, just one of the biggest nutty shit I've seen is COVID rates are up because undocumented immigrants are flooding over the border. That is a big one in Jackson. That's a big.
What blows my mind is like it's similar along those lines is how like Israel basically like they're hailed so much about like how they're doing such a great job with vaccination. I mean, and they are actually, but the flip side of that is they're only just like you would expect from an ethno-nationalist state that's a racist apartheid state. It means they're only vaccinating the people that fit into like their national community, right? The people that have the right, ethnicity, right? Let's be real about it. And the reality is like, but what is the absurd irony is that like if they actually want to like get this virus at bay, they should be the biggest fans of like vaccinating Palestinians, but they can't because politically they would lose in racist Israeli society. Like politicians would lose their seat in the Knesset if you come out advocating for vaccinating, using Israeli resources to vaccinate the Palestinians. Like, no, they're not going to do that, even though they know they need to do that, but they're not, which shows you the absurd logic of a settler colonial state, how it implodes in its face, right? So I just have to throw that out there, man. Like,
100%. And this ties back, I mean, not to like purposely bring it back to the Olympics. I'm not trying to do that, but like Japanese culture is a huge like microcosm of this, right? Like masks for the last 20 years, I mean, plus, because they believe in just stopping germ spread, but highly skeptical of vaccines. And that just kind of goes like across the board, right? Like it is a culture that does not do that. They mentioned that, like I remember distinctly when it came up to when they were talking about going from spectators to no spectators at the Olympics. They briefly brought it up, but then they realized the shitstorm they created for themselves, right? They created this huge storm by saying, here's the society that like culturally, they're all about like disease prevention through means A, but like culturally, they're skeptical of means B. And that's just, and it's a cultural thing. So you have super high mask rates in Japan. You have super low vaccination rate in Japan. And that's why Japan went, okay, so we're going to go ahead and shut down no spectators. We're going to lock down this Olympics. If it has to go forward, I would still say that I think we all know the IOC is what forced them to go forward. And if the Japanese people, because I think over 82% of Japanese people did not even want this to happen.
Justin, the Japanese people are irrelevant to the IOC. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just the cold hard truth. Like, and that tells you what the IOC is, But. Do
you know that three members of the IOC board have Baron in their title? 3. Baron. They're barons.
Barons over the land. They're land. They're
one of them's like 93.
Yeah, Mike. I remember like when you were up at we were in the city and like I was like we were walking along Central Park and like we were just like walking. There's like these like bourgeois like ruling class like lady like skeletons almost like 80. They're trying to hold on to their youth with like a million like every kind of Botox imaginable. And they're just like walking and it's like that's sort of what I imagine. It's like ruling like like a lot of that's what happens with a lot of these people. They try to hold on to youth and then like they'll walk around and they're like shells of their former selves, but they still try to like carry the poses and postures of like their aristocratic or like baroness or baron state type positions and titles they have. It's just it's wild, man. Those people can't let go.
My favorite thing that I learned going down a Google hole on the IOC is that one of them he's the one that's in his 90s. Back when poetry was an actual like medaled event in the Olympics, like in like 1912. This man who's still alive today and works for the IOC like submitted a poem that like won a medal. I mean, it's wild. It is absolutely wild. But he's a baron.
Poetry, though, I got to make the point. Like poetry was never like what people think about it now. Like up until about like 100 years ago, or so. I mean, really Wordsworth, and then World War I. You got this like disillusionment, obviously, because of World War I. But it used to be like like Beowulf type stuff. You're writing like an epic before battle about like your dreams of glory and about like how we're gonna go, we're gonna conquer, we're gonna win. Right? It was never like there's like, oh, I'm pained intellectual, guy like writing about like. Like disillusionment. That's a new phenomenon, right? And
I just gotta say, it's a shitty poem. I read it. It's bad. Anyway,
so Mike,
Barron.
We were just going on Baylor's code of conduct and just going off on how the Big 12 was like BYU can't join, but then we got like Baylor in here that's like literally in their like student code of conduct like says like stuff like.
Marriage biblically is between a man and a woman.
The university affirms the biblical understanding of sexuality is a gift from God. Christian churches across the ages around the world have affirmed purity and singleness and fidelity in marriage between a man and a woman as the biblical norm. Temptations to deviate from this norm include both heterosexual sex outside of marriage and homosexual behavior. So like that is Baylor University.
Yeah, Baylor's like, allowed in the Big 12.
You're reigning basketball national champions. And I was wondering, like, how do they keep getting recruits? Like, I don't understand, like, not just because of that, but like, what is the appeal? Like, I mean, you have like all these other schools like that are, to me on the surface would be way more appealing, but they're like beating out like Texas sometimes for recruits. Like, I can't figure out. I basically I want Baylor to like crash and burn, like So I want to figure out like how to make that happen, right? In terms of, and
it reminds me of like how does Liberty University get schools? The school started by the late Demon Jerry Farwell. You know what I'm saying? Like they're getting top recruits. And I think it's because mainly like those one thing about those extreme right wingers, they love their sports and they understand the revenue that the sports brings to the schools. So that's the same reason why you see like universities like BYU, which is extremely conservative. They invest so much into the football program because the football program is what brings these schools so much national attention, national exposure. It also brings them revenue. I mean, being a part of the Pac-12. Is BYU a part of the Pac-12?
No, they're independent. They can't.
They're independent.
They literally can't get in the conference because their student code of conduct is so insane. Like it's even more insane than Baylor's. So they're.
But I've heard that Baylor's going to try to with Oklahoma and Texas, go from the SEC. I've heard that they're trying to get Texas Tech, trying to get Baylor as well.
Right. I've heard that too.
It might just be just the media market in general, like in Texas, to try to just cover all the areas.
The footprint,
I mean, Baylor got some lit uniforms, and if you read the horrible reports that happened under Art Brown.
Well, not even just Art Brown. I mean, unbelievable. Yeah, no doubt. But what about the dude like the basketball team, or like they got a teammate murdering another teammate, and the coach covering it up, and then they had like all these. I mean, they've had so many scandals. Like,
I guess if you go to Baylor, you can do whatever the fuck you want to do.
Like they got
and wear dope uniforms.
They got the point guard whacking the center, and then the coach being like, get rid of his body.
Josh Gordon, man. Think about Josh Gordon. Like he got to the league, had a couple good years, and just couldn't.
He stayed pissing dirty, man. He never even played in a game at Baylor either. He was like suspended the whole time he was there.
Right. So I mean, it probably has a connection or something more. So I don't know how Baylor gets all that shit. Given how shit.
But hey, dope uniforms.
Yeah.
Those uniforms are fucking lit, man. Those uniforms like gold. Yeah, that's awesome.
Baylor and Oregon, right? Like they recruit. Like that's how Oregon gets all those 230-pound offensive linemen.
They also got that Microsoft money, that.
Yeah,
that helps. That Phil Knight money, is
the Nike money. Nike money.
Whatever they call it, he gets it.
What? Are you saying that all corporations are the same? All right. No, so like I I want to make the. Yeah, I don't know, man. Just the whole thing with the. I was making a point earlier, Mike. I'm wondering what your take is. Consolidation, like with this conference realignment, is bigger than just college football, but it's also. We got into it later in that segment. I wish I would have played the last half of it. Now I think about it, but
We
anyways,
can't spoil it for those who are going to watch it,
you're right. Good point.
including me. Including me.
Wow, that touched the heart. But I mean, I don't know.
It's a Rania thing. Sorry.
Whoa, now, oh, my heart's broken. All right. Anyways, yeah, but like, there's damn, where are we going? No, I mean, to me, it's like just what like Marx wrote about, like about how like there's just within a market-based economy, like you always have a tendency towards consolidation, monopolization, right? Is this not just an expression of that? Mike, you
Repeat that last part.
I said, like, is it like, Marx would write about how, like, under market-based economies, like, the monopolization, consolidation, is just a natural tendency. And is that what's being expressed with this, like, Texas and OU coming into the SEC and potentially even more? Like, we're just seeing, like, in some ways, it's cool to see the NCAA be like, a bit, but really, I don't know. Is it that cool when you think that like all that's being replaced by is just a bunch of TV? Like station conglomerates, like broadcasting.
I mean, 100%. It's a race to the top. I mean, what we're going to see is a bunch of super conferences with super huge TV contracts making a lot of money. I mean, the Big 12 just wasn't as profitable to Texas and Oklahoma as the SEC is, and the SEC just signed a huge, mega, fucking huge, hundreds, a lot of money with ESPN.
It'll kick in 2024, I think.
Right.
And
Right.
No, 23.
Right. But, Texas and Oklahoma, they're planning to try to get some games, in the SEC very sooner rather than later. So, Marx did write, about, what they call it, accumulation of capital, like this period in which before capitalism started, you had the theft of indigenous land, the theft of labor and slavery, and you just had this kind of this rush for gold, you know what I'm saying, which oddly enough was part of accumulation of capital. But in general, I don't know if under capitalism, ownership of property, you're inclined to accumulate as much because you always have a tendency under capitalism towards monopolization. I mean, that's exactly why we have imperialism, because these corporations that came into existence, following the bourgeois revolution of like 1776, you know what I'm saying? And these, at that time you said all these barons started to exist in the early 1900s. I mean, these barons, ore barons.
You mean early 1900s or 1800s? You're talking now, because like
1900s for like the great steel companies, steel barons.
Gilded Age.
Well, as I said, in the 1800s, you basically you had the Civil War. You had all these different like kind of conflicts amongst the ruling class. But this accumulation of sorts, like the blacksmith of 1776, became the successful one, the quote unquote, who had the ability to maneuver with state government, with the state and get contracts and whatever. I don't know if it was called contracts back then, but they were able to maneuver themselves, and now they became these these giant ore barons, these giant, like that's the natural tendency towards capitalism, is to accumulate as much property as you can, accumulate as much wealth as you can, beat out your competition, like fuck them up, you know what I'm saying? And that's why you have Walmarts, that's why you have these like mega imperialist corporations that have accumulated so much wealth and property that they're able to drive out the competition, which is what you see in college football. Oddly enough, I mean, these smaller conferences will not be able to survive, comparatively towards the big conferences. And with how big TV deals are becoming, I mean, it's Texas and Oklahoma are, I guess back in the day, you had the Southwest Conference, in which you had
that was all the Texas schools plus Arkansas.
Back when Arkansas was like a big, huge, major program.
I mean, you know what, Mike? I don't know if I showed you this before, but next time you come over to my parents' house in Jacksonville, I'll be back home on the 16th to the 23rd, actually. But I have from my granddad. My granddad's little brother was a coach on the Arkansas national championship team in 1964 and then 65. And like
His little brother.
Yeah, so Pat. Yeah, he was born in 1925, and
Oh, wow.
my granddad was born in 1922. So, it was Jerry Jones was a starter offensive lineman, and Jimmy Johnson, the former Cowboy coach that he fired later, infamously was a star defensive tackle, like superstar. This was before integration, so I mean we don't know how they would have stacked up.
Nate, is your granddad really 99?
99, yeah, he's 99.
That is crazy, bro.
99 and almost 99 and a half, yeah.
That's crazy.
That's wild.
That is wild.
His mom lived to be 105. So like when I was a kid, I was 14 when she died. So like I remember she was telling me she was 16 when the Titanic sank. So she was telling me about like how like they got the news and everything in 1912 and all that. And it was I was just like, what? Because I was asking since I was like a kid when like the Titanic movie came out, like, and
it also makes sense with your grandpops in the sense that like by the time the civil rights movement came up, probably a lot of his viewpoints have been consolidated, military and just the environment around him.
I mean, he was already a full.
You're like 40, yeah. You're like 40.
Yeah, he was literally would have been 42 when the Civil Rights Act of '64 was passed.
Older than I am now when the Civil Rights Act.
Yeah, so
like the 40-year-olds now who are like pissed off at like BLM protests in the streets. They're like,
hey, I'm 40. I'm not pissed off by that shit. I support
42. I said 42. I didn't say 40.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Look, Justin, you gotta listen, my man. He said,
I know. Sorry.
42,
Sorry.
not 40.
Sorry.
All right.
Damn it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it just does go to show you that these, like, the more things change, the more they stay the same, which is that right-winger reactionaries are going to find whatever is, like, the thing that is trying to push things forward, push progress forward, make people's lives better, then that's got to stop, right? That's how they view things, right? So we should draw some lessons from that, And on that note, I'm about ready to tap out for the night. I don't know about you.
I got a question. Do you think if they could get away with this, do you think that they do like do you think that where this will go is this will go to a place where we have 30 schools that survive like the conference wars, right?
It'll be like
it's
confederation.
It's the league. It's a league. And they'll split it just like you would the NFL, just like you would anything else. And they're just going to wind up with two divisions. And this is where we're going. And you know what? But they'll steal from baseball too. And these like mid-major schools, if they still want to have a football program, which I don't even know how they would. But like if they still do, that just becomes like minor leagues. I mean, like what's the end game? And I'm not saying like in the next 5 years. I'm saying what does this look like in 20?
This is one of the. Yeah, I 100% agree. It looks, there's going to be a race to the top in regards to that. I mean, kind of low key, the game changer is NIL and how like NIL is like even like was that top Texas QB recruit Quinn Evers.
Well, Alabama, Nick Saban and Hoover, Alabama.
He said Bryce Young.
Bryce Young.
I think he's lying. I think
it officially came out that he's verified, like he's got $800K in the bank already, so he's not that far.
Good for that kid. He hasn't played a fucking snap at Alabama. He already has. Talking about the guy Quinn Evers. He's a top recruit in the class of not 2022 but 2023. He's going to forego his senior year in high school to go to Ohio State, where he can get NIL a lot of money. So in essence, what's going to happen is that you're going to see how good the colleges are at capitalism is going to dictate the players they have. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like Alabama, for example, they have so many sponsorships, corporate sponsorships. Like all of big capital in Alabama supports the Crimson Tide, therefore gives those players opportunities to market themselves with those corporations.
Except the rich Auburn people.
Except the rich Auburn, you know what I mean? But
there's a few of them too, but
very little. But you know what I'm saying? But like schools like the comment Nebraska, like who the fuck wants to go to Lincoln, Nebraska? And also,
Yo,
like, I
Hey,
think they have
Jeffrey. Jeffrey, we love you. We love you,
Sorry,
Jeffrey.
yo, Jeff, no, he's out in Western Nebraska. Jeffrey is. Right?
Okay,
You know, but
I'm just saying. I think
he is
Lincoln,
the corner out there,
Nebraska.
though.
Nebraska's dope, man. I have a.
That's why you don't get recruits, Jeffrey.
Yo, man, like I remember when I was a kid, I was like 9, and Nebraska, like that 95 Nebraska team was the most dominant team I've still ever seen. They beat an undefeated Florida Gator team that was 12-0, the first to run the table.
Yeah,
Tommy Frazier, Lawrence Phillips.
What year?
Like,
95, 94, 97.
94, 95, and 97. 97
yeah.
split, right?
Well, I bring that up to be like, I think
They would have lost. They would have lost to Penn State. That's all I'm saying. I don't. Sorry, that was for Jeffrey.
Whatever. Penn State fandom. All right.
I've heard Lincoln, Nebraska has some finance capital there, like some insurance stuff like that. But it's like it's going to be tougher for them because it's so isolated. And apparently in Lincoln it gets really cold or really hot. Like it's like one of the two. So that's something that I think it's going to be really up to the schools and how they market their athletes to get those opportunities. And I think obviously the schools that are in major conferences and have more experience in terms of successful programs will have the upper hand, but also I think that's where school, a lot of like MEAC schools, like historically Black college universities and their programs with NIL, they also have an opportunity, if they're able to compete in the market like on a fair scale and to develop talents and opportunities using their alumni networks to benefit the athletes. So I don't know, it's opening up a new world that I'm excited about because this how it was is not optimal for anybody. And like if I break one last thing up before I end, remember Dabo Swinney? He was like if college players get paid, he's going to leave and blah blah blah. And then at ACC Media Days, they asked him about NIL, and you know what he said? He said it's a great thing, and I'm happy that the players are getting paid.
It is a great thing. We should get some T-shirts made, just Dabo NIL. It's a great thing.
I hope these kids, as somebody who has worked as an independent contractor for half of my working life, I hope that these kids understand what it's like to be on an I-9 and what saving their tax money. All I'm saying is I hope these schools are doing good by them and saying, hey, this is all I-9 money. You like tax is not deducted from this money you get. You need to save half of it and pay your taxes. All I'm saying is that I hope that they're doing, if this is the way that we're going to do this, if this is how they're going to get paid, I just hope the schools are setting these kids up because that's rough. It's real rough.
And we can't forget that all of this, like part of the NIL, part of the logic of Kavanaugh and then those people that are on that camp, like is that they realized that the writing was on the wall. Amateurism was like the currency for it was gone, and that they wanted to like put away to make sure that like there wasn't going to be labor organizing by letting them make money, but to make it
let them make money, but don't touch our money
in the free market, and then making it in the free market further, like kind of like building up like the logic of neoliberal capitalism. So it's just like, look, I'm all for NIL, but I'm just saying that's definitely
absolutely
the way they're coming at it. They didn't want to see unionization. They definitely didn't want to see that.
Yeah, they don't want to see profit sharing. They don't want to share their money. They want to let these kids make their own money, but they don't want to share their money.
They want to let their boosters, hook them up with some deals, right? Yeah. Outsourcing. Yeah. Outsourcing at its best. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. On that note. Also, I want to make the point, Jeffrey, before we go, I will tell you something. So I was a 9-year-old boy. My dad is a longtime Florida Gator season ticket holder. I think, Mike, you actually sat in my dad's season tickets that one game at the Florida State game in 2013. But anyways, Well, Kelvin Benjamin, very much.
He said wide receiver at 268, man. That's
Hold on, bro. Very much in the news here in New York City today. He like went off on like the New York Giants organization. It's like, yo, this is a hoax, man. They like blah blah blah. Like, bro, you're 268. Like Jimbo redshirted you in 2011 at Florida State because you were like so overweight and you like came in to want to be like a 250-pound receiver. Now you then ended up being a first-round pick, and everybody like Florida State fans are forever going to have to be grateful for their third national title for the hands of one Kelvin Benjamin from Belle Glade, Florida, the Muck. But it's still crazy. I mean, he's done from the league. He's going to be blackballed after this. There's no doubt. Especially the Giants being like a blue blood franchise, where it's like, you know, model. You know, they kind of market themselves as like they're the old guard of the NFL. Like Wellington Mara, dude. If your first name is Wellington, I don't know, man. I think you just know what's up, right? If you're a Wellington,
named after a beef dish, yeah,
the Duke of Wellington Mara, right? But the point, Jeffrey, is this: like I had a ticket to the game, the Fiesta Bowl. It was the national championship game that year, and my dad was flying out to Tempe. So my grandmother, who's also Dave Schneider's grandmother, Mike, she R.I.P. Addie, but. She drove me to the airport. I was waiting on standby, and one person showed up the last minute. I didn't get on the plane. It was like a charter flight. It was a charter flight out there, like Gator fans. So, anyways, I missed that beatdown. Probably, and my dad was just for the best. It was actually a cold night. He said in the upper deck of what is now Sun Devil Stadium. They actually had the Super Bowl there a few weeks later, and the Cowboys beat the Steelers. And it was that famous game that Larry Brown won the MVP with like Barry Switzer as the coach. So. Little context there. Next year, though, my dad did take me with him to New Orleans, and I did watch the Gators get revenge on. We were now my Knowles, right? But they weren't at that time. The Gators avenged the 24-21 loss in Tallahassee. They got the rematch after Florida beat Alabama in the SEC championship a week later. They got a rematch in New Orleans that year. That was the year the Super Bowl was at the Superdome, and Brett Favre got his only Super Bowl ring, beating Bill Parcells heading out the door. New England Patriots, quarterbacked by Drew Bledsoe. But the Gators beat Florida State 52-20. And their likes of like Fred Taylor, Ike Hilliard, Reed Anthony, Jaquez Green, Danny Werfel just tossing the ball all over the place. So those it's hard to overstate like how. That was like revolutionary. Like I'm not like overusing that word. To spur your offenses and how that changed like the SEC and then in college football as a whole. I mean, it like defenses were not caught up to what they were doing conceptually, and that was obvious. Like Florida State played the perfect game in Tallahassee, like the win barely at home and had some breaks go their way. It was like, but that Florida team was nasty. The fact that Nebraska the year before. Pretty much the same team with like very much the same cast of characters and just annihilated a 12-0 national champion. Yeah. Like the way they did. I still contend 95 Nebraska. They had linemen like Zach Wiedert, remember from the Jags, Mike? I mean, corn-fed, like corn-husker, like just down, down and dirty, bad to the bone mofos. I mean, that was Nebraska. I mean, and Lawrence Phillips, like, you can look him up. He literally was a bad dude, man. I mean, that dude. I mean, I'm not glorifying some of the stuff he did at all, but I mean, he was something else on the football field. And Tommy Frazier was not. Last fact, story time here, was not recruited to play quarterback by any of the big three Florida schools. All right, they were still, whether it was race or whatever. I mean, I think it was more. Probably, and I mean, maybe in some ways it was, but. Look at that. All right. Yeah, Russell Westbrook, the new big three. Russell Westbrook has returned to his hometown. Yes. He is an LA Laker now. That's interesting. Well, now let's look at the draft. We are, Scotty Barnes from Florida State, a little bit of a shocker. I don't know if y'all noticed that. Nobody thought that the top four was like very much set in stone. And Barnes,
Justin, you gotta hop off. You can.
I gotta hop off, but I gotta leave with one controversial statement really quick with what happened with what's been said tonight, and that is that 1912. Let's just take a second. The Titanic didn't sink; the Olympics sank. That they rebranded as the Titanic for insurance purposes. Anyway, I'm just going to throw that out there. If you want to go down a weird rabbit hole, just look into like what that company did that owned both of those ships and how I personally believe that they swapped the ships.
Right.
And
Yeah.
let that thing sink. Anyway, I got to go.
Yo,
The Olympics sank in 1912, not the Titanic.
So yeah, Alabama was awful under Mike Shula, by the way, Jeffrey. Like, I'll go
Bye, guys.
later, Justin. I'll finish my last thing I was gonna say. So Tommy Frazier was from Bradenton, Florida. His little brother Rod Frazier played fullback for the Gators with Spurrier. So he's like, I'll take your fullback brother, but it's not just Spurrier. None of the big three in Florida offered him, and he ended up playing the Canadian Football League actually afterwards. But Jeffrey, I'd love to do that. That'd be cool for sure.
We should definitely do a mail bag, do like a question bag. Great suggestion.
Yeah, we got to do like the sports only episode with the college football coming up. I mean, I got to use some of my useless historical knowledge, I guess.
Nate, I'm a Jaguar season ticket holder now.
I do, and congratulations again. Like, I remember a couple months ago you mentioned that when you made the move. That's good stuff, man. Good stuff. Jeffrey, fellow teacher solidarity. I'm in the classroom with no air conditioning right now this summer, and my thermometer got up to 90 degrees. Last week in the classroom, over that actually. So,
you moved to Jersey because it was colder.
Yo, the summers up here are no joke, man. They're not like, the only difference is you get like a little breaks here and there, whereas in Florida it just stays hot like constantly.
Right.
Like you'll get a little cool front that'll come through, but then when it heats back up, it is worse in a lot of ways because AC is so normalized in Florida. It's almost like the place would get sued if they didn't have it. Here it's like you don't need it but 3 or 4 months of the year. So. And with like climate change, I think it's like that's starting to change. More places.
It was like having a heater here. Like, when I was growing up, my mom and where we lived, we were like poor. I guess we had a kerosene heater. So I just remember I remember when it was cold, going to Hess.
Yeah, get the kerosene.
Does Hess exist? Does Hess still exist?
Yeah, the Hess Express and stuff. Like Herman Cain's. That's where Herman Cain's Godfather's Pizza. The only place you could get it.
Bro, dude, I just remember. Rest in peace. I remember going to. I remember going to the Hess, getting the kerosene, and using the kerosene heater. We would have electric heaters, but you didn't really need like a heater system in Florida. You know what I'm saying? But AC, you need an AC. If you don't have an AC, you're fucked up. I wanted to say,
listen to Neil. My whole family left Arkansas when it didn't get below 95. Yeah, Neil, being from Maine, you literally don't know what we're talking about. Like, I'll be in Maine actually, Neil, on August 24th through like the 31st. So I'll be in Damariscotta and then in Portland. But go ahead, Mike.
The birth state of George H. Bush.
Yep, it's literal New England Yankee country, and I don't mean New York Yankees. I mean like the old American Eastern establishment.
The real Americans.
And, like the Bushes still have the big. Neil can talk about this. Kenny Bunkport is up there. They have the big compound up there. It's actually south of Portland.
Jesus, how many fucking compounds and ranches do these people have?
They got a few. They also had like Prescott Bush loved the Nazis too. George Bush's dad. He was very fond of like their great industrial prowess and stuff like that. He wrote about it. So they're just masters of industry.
The whole Nazi, racism stuff. I didn't care about that, but their innovation.
I just love the innovation. I love Bavarian Motor Works. I just was impressed with their innovation.
My favorite soda is Fanta right now.
Man, it's something else. All right, before we say something stupid, let's
it's
all that's bad, obviously.
Oh, that's horrible.
I love somebody like take that like an isolated clip and just be like, man, Nazi industrial like prowess. People like, see,
they're gonna quote Nate Wallace.
It'll be like the Knowles for Israel people will be like coming after me again after like a little
Canary fishing has you, bro.
Oh yeah, they'll be like, look, we got him now. All right, man. On that note, everybody else, thanks for hanging out. We'll be back next week. We're out. Peace.